Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmete Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Living in the present. This morning we are discussing how we can progressively live in the present, meaning progressively live in ourselves by slowly transforming our mind from tamas to rajas, rajas to sattva, and sattva to ourselves. So this morning we discussed how when tamoguna, tamas predominates our mind, how there is no initiative, desire to do anything. And there are reasons why one is not motivated to perform an action. Very often an unpleasant outcome also discourages one. Usually we perform action for a desirable outcome, which is quite all right. But when it comes to performing duty, niyatam kuru karmatvam, Lord Krishna says that in any given situation you should perform duty, meaning do what is right to do. Often the mind wants to do what it likes to do. It says do what is right to do, even if it is not what you like to do. This was a conflict in the mind of Arjuna. He didn't like to do this, perform this action because the outcome was unpleasant. In the form of, naturally, death of many near and dear ones. What was right to do also he knew. As a Kshatriya, it was right for him to resist the forces of adharma. But still, what he liked ultimately prevailed in his mind. And so he says, I will not perform this action. So Lord Krishna says, whether you like it or not, do what is right. And so this kartavya or duty is a very important aspect. And it is even said, akarane pratyavaya. There is a threat or the fear also is created. If you fail to perform your duty, then you incur sin and you may go to hell. Akarane pratyavaya. Meaning that not only you should do what is right, but refraining to do from what is right also is a sin. Vedantins don't accept it. Vedantins say that if you don't do something, there should be no result, no outcome. Mimamsaka says that if in a given situation a certain response is expected from you, and you fold your hands and don't do, that also is a negative action. When you have a certain duty to protect something, duty to support something, to do something which is your duty, which is what you are meant for in a given situation, then not doing also, the Mimamsaka say that creates a negative result. Akarane pratyavaya. Pratyavaya means a negative result. You can call it papa. This is threat. And this is the method we also use in our day-to-day life. If you don't do that, this is a punishment. So Lord Krishna said here, Shariraya trapyate na prasiddhyet akarmana. If you fail to respond to a situation, fail to perform your role, and refrain from doing anything which is right, then we said in the morning, it will not be possible for you even to sustain your life. This is a threat. And what is meant is that you are what you are, or you are able to do what you are able to do, because, as I said, of the cooperation that we receive from all the different forces of the universe. And what is meant by kartavya or duty is to respond in a sense of gratitude for the favor or the benefit that you are receiving from them. If you don't show that gratitude, so that also affects your mind, creates a negative effect for you. And therefore, kartavya means doing what is right in a given situation. That's kartavya or duty. In the words of Pujya Swami, play their role according to script. That in every situation we are required to play a role as a father, a son, as mother, daughter, superior, subordinate, citizen. And each of these roles has a script. And so, do it properly. This is a very important concept of the Vedas called kartavya or duty. You all know very well that Vedic society is a society based on the duty rather than the rights. And again, Pujya Swami said that my duty becomes your right. When father performs the duty towards the family, then that becomes the right of the family. And when the members of family perform their duty towards their elders, it becomes their right and his duty. So ideally speaking, if everybody performs their duty or do what is right for them, the rights are automatically taken care of. We don't have to demand our rights because your duty automatically takes care of my rights. A society based on rights is a society based on demand. I demand that you have to do this for me because it is my right. That creates only conflict. Rights create conflicts and duties create harmony. Because when I do something for you which I consider is my duty, then you appreciate that. You recognize that here is a person who is doing something for me on his own. And therefore, that is why Lord Krishna says, recognize what the world is doing for you, what devatas, different forces of nature, all elements and everything it is doing for you. the forces of nature called devatas, our pitrus, ancestors, our rishis, sages, teachers, thinkers, other members of society, the farmers, all of them, the doctors, farmers, lawyers, teachers, postmen, nurses, whoever they are, all of them are, I am what I am on account of what all they do. Very often what a person does may not directly perhaps affect me. I may not see an immediate result or connection. But sequentially, it certainly helps me. What somebody does, as the scientists say that, what happens in this universe affects, in some other universe correspondingly. So what a person does something in a remote place, it will have a consequential effect to do something for me. Because that's how the scheme of things is. Everything is interrelated. You have pointed out this earlier a number of times that Upanishad says that everything is related to everything else by way of helping everything and being helped by everything. Upakarya, upakaraka. Everything benefits others, everything receives benefits from others. That's a beautiful observation. In that sense, we are all connected, not only human beings, but the whole universe consisting of sentient, insentient entities are all connected. Because I am the recipient of what everything else does, and therefore it becomes my duty to return that favor. This duty is a very important concept. And that's what brings me out from my tamas, or the tendency of not doing anything. This is my duty to do. So that is how the mind can be progressively transformed from tamas inactivity to activity. And Lord Krishna would say that even activity performed for a personal agenda also is better than not doing anything. Because when you do something, you fulfill personal agenda, then also in a way you are contributing. If a person starts a business for his own self, but then that way he serves the society. So somebody asked me, Swamiji, how about this, these days some industrialist starting this, space travel. It may be meant for personal gain, that to create business and your people and attract them, maybe. It may serve the purpose of a particular person or group of persons. But it contributes to the humanity. It contributes, by way of science, by way of development, great contribution, by producing wealth. So even when a person does things to satisfy his own agenda, there is still contribution involved there. Because you cannot fulfill your agenda unless you also fulfill agenda of other people. At least even if I start a business, I should make other people happy, then only they will cooperate with me. So performing action, even in action performed for personal agenda, Lord Krishna is any time better than not doing anything. So there is no sanction for inactivity in Vedic society. Retirement is an official retirement. That you graduate to a higher, stage of life. Not just cop out from activity. This may sound too, demanding and too strict, but this is the spirit in the Vedas. Yes, of course, there was a retirement plan in Vedas also. That when the father became, let's say for that time, 50 years old, He only lived 25 years of householder's life. And then he rises to the next stage called the Vanaprastha, which is withdrawing from the activity of the society and now focusing upon his personal spiritual growth. The description in the Vedas, there is a growth takes place, we discover a satisfaction of ourselves, then I become generous and ready to part with things. In fact, ready to offer myself. That is called self-offering. That is called yajna. So Lord Yajnarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Lord Krishna says that an action performed in the spirit of yajna is at any rate better than action performed with a selfish motive. So from selfish motive now, Lord Krishna wants us to graduate to what is called yajna or selflessness. From self-centeredness to the other-centeredness. Swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vinnati manava. A person gains success by performing action in the spirit of worship to the Lord, or offering to the Lord, or offering to the society, offering to the universe. So this is how we initiate the transformation of mind into sattvic mind. As you can see that in this process, my ragadveshas have to be subdued because my temptations, my attachments, aversions, they come in the way of following dharma, come in the way of following values, come in the way of being other-centered. Because the first question that the mind asks is, what is in it for me? And I have to subdue that tendency, what is in it for me? Thus, from rajas to sattva. So how do I know whether my mind is rajas or tamas or sattva? Lord Krishna says rajas is predominant and there is greed in the mind, lobha. Ambitions are there, ceaseless activity is there, inner dissatisfaction is there. Therefore, restlessness is there in the mind, and that drives a person from one action to the other. And in spite of many accomplishments, he doesn't get any satisfaction. That is rajas. And that's what we find predominant in the world. Not predominant, but this is what we see in all activities, in the businesses and so forth, rajas. Activity doesn't mean self-centered, but that's what we find. People are motivated or driven by fulfilling their own personal agenda, even at the cost of others, unfortunately. But when I put a break into these tendencies and introduce the tendency of sattva, values, right attitudes, then slowly I discover an inner satisfaction. There is an immediate reward. Of being other-centered, reward is immediate because immediately my mind discovers a satisfaction because I know that I have done something right. When I do to you what I expect from you, then I know that I have done something right, and there is a satisfaction. So it is also a process of progressively discovering inner self-satisfaction. Inner self-acceptance. What we want ultimately is that wise person is Atmanev Atmana Tushtaha. He is completely satisfied by himself. But that is a process. It doesn't happen in one day. It's a process by which we progressively discover self-satisfaction, self-acceptance, self-comfort. We pointed out that I am the problem for myself and I have to make myself the solution. When I'm not comfortable with myself, then I'm the problem to me. That is when my mind drives me off to various activities, there is restlessness. This process slowly brings about an inner contentment, inner satisfaction. But Swamiji, you always talk about contentment. If there is contentment in the world, then where is the progress? Usual question that people ask, if there is contentment, then there will be no progress. There will be progress. There is no rule that progress can come or activity can come only from dissatisfaction. Inner satisfaction can bring activity of doing good to the mankind. The people who have dedicated themselves to the good of the mankind were people who had no personal need because they discovered that happiness from themselves. And so happiness wants you to share that with others. Happy person doesn't sit idle. In some way he wants to share that happiness. And that is by way of serving, offering, in whichever way he or she can do. So I don't think we should worry what will happen, Swamiji, if I am content with myself. Will be more creative and more productive. Is it not so that when we are happy with something, we always want to share our happiness? Hey, look at the moon. So you see this, all of a sudden the bright, round moon in the sky. Right away you draw something. Look at the moon. Because you enjoy that, and you're prompted to share that enjoyment. So a happy person always wants to share his happiness. Unhappy person only wants to, he alone is only narrow-minded. That narrow-mindedness, self-centeredness shows only inner unhappiness. Unfortunately, what we do is that we try to justify that, and so that inner, narrow-mindedness keeps on growing. Self-centeredness keeps on growing. That's called the bondage. So, from Rajas to Sattva. With this Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, right attitudes, right values. Then what? This, of course, we have discussed millions of times, therefore I am not going to elaborate too much. Then the Upanishad says, Tametam Vedanuvachanena Brahmanaha Vividishanti Yajnena Danena Tapasa Anashakena. Brahmanaha Vividishanti. Vedutam Ichanti, the Brahmanas, meaning the thinking people, the Vivekinaha, the thinking people, the mature people. Vividishanti, they want to create in their mind a desire for knowledge. At some point in time, a person discovers that knowledge is what in fact I should have in my life. Because so in Sattva, the mind slowly, the desire gets transformed from the desire to enjoy the bhoga to the desire for knowledge. This transformation takes place. If we look at the Upanishad, the Mundaka Upanishad says, that Brahmana nirvedamayat nasta krutah krutena parikshalokan karmachitan, meaning that when a person examines the achievements of life, then he realizes that it is not by acquiring and things that I am going to attain perfection that I want. It is by knowing that I will gain the perfection. This is transformation that takes place in the mind, where the desire for accomplishments transforms into desire for knowledge. Vividishanti. Suppose we don't have that desire for knowledge, if there is a value for that desire, if we become aware of the basic scheme of things that life ultimately is for praptasya prapti. In a sattvic mind, this kind of viveka or this kind of mature thinking happens. That what I am seeking in my life is not something limited. What I am seeking myself is becoming totally free. I want happiness, but unconditional happiness I want. I have gained a lot of happiness from things, and being, but then I realize that none of them has given me any sustained satisfaction. Well, what am I seeking? I am seeking not only happiness, but unconditional happiness. Everybody loves freedom. What kind of freedom do I love? Unconditional freedom. This is a discovery. Oh, what is it that I want in life? When the mind has some leisure from a lot of running around and a lot of activities, which is driven by the desires and by greed, when the mind has leisure, then mind starts thinking about the basics of life. What do I want in life? What am I seeking? Well, Swami Viditatmananda, first of all, the teacher makes the student aware of the fact that, hey, you are seeking something. That the mind is desiring shows that you are lacking something and you want to try to fulfill your lack by fulfilling desires. And if you examine what all has happened by fulfilling number of desires, is still you are still a desiring person. That means that fulfilling desire is not the way to become free from desire. And what I want is to be free from desire, because desire is a manifestation of my income or my lack or want. So this is what happens in a sattvic mind. As the mind gets sattvic, it starts thinking, becomes contemplative mind, a thinking mind. Kathopanishad says, Paranjikhani Vyatuna Swayambhuhu Tasmat Parang Pasyarinantaratman. Ishvara has made our mind with having temptations and fascinations by external things. Therefore mind always runs out for satisfaction. Kaschid dhiraha pratyagatmanam. Some dhiraha, some thinking person realizes that, hey, what I am seeking is amrutattvam, immortality. I am not seeking some limited happiness. What I am seeking is amrutattvam ichan, immortality. Adhruve shudraham. Now, then he realizes that what all perishable things, they cannot give me imperishable. All impermanent things cannot give me the permanent that I am seeking. Atmanam ikshat. Then the next step, this is what I have discovered for myself. So that is how the desire for knowledge arises. From this kind of a mature thinking or understanding. That life is for praptasya prapti. I have to see, I have to recognize that what I am seeking is my own self. That's a big step. So tad vijnanartham, that between first line of that mantra and second line, the first line says that Brahmana nirvedamaya, this thinking person, contemplation, discovers vairagya, discovers dispassion. Second line says tad vijnanartham, for the knowledge of that. Now what is the connection between that? That when vairagya happens really, then that arises that desire for knowledge. Then you should proceed to what is required to fulfill that desire. Amrutattvam ichan pratyagatmanam ikshat. So, as the mind changes, then also the nature of desire changes. And we discover in ourselves, Brahmana vividishanti. The Brahmanas, meaning the thinking people, the mature people, are seeking for the self-knowledge, desire for self-knowledge arises in their mind. And therefore whatever they do in the spirit of yajna. So when Lord Krishna teaches that make your life a yajna as a process of offering. Yat karosi yadashnasi yajjuhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunte tat kurusva madarpanam. Lord, give everything to me. Whatever action you perform for me. And what is offered to Ishvara is called ahuti or an oblation. That will make your life a yajna. And the concept of yajna is transformed from just a ceremony ritual to the very process of life. Tat kurusva madarpanam. Make it an offering to me. Then what will happen, Lord Krishna? If I offer myself, what do I get? So you will get liberated. Liberated from the bondage of karma, bondage of attachment. Sannyasa yoga yukta atma. You'll become a sannyasi in the spirit, a renunciate in the spirit. So Lord Krishna calls karma yogi also a renunciate. If renunciation is the ultimate goal of life, then the renunciation also happens in the process of karma yoga. So karma yogi is a renunciate in training. That is called karma yoga. At every step we have to let go of our self-centeredness, of our personal agenda, and merge our agenda into the universal Ishvara's agenda. As our Swami would say that, more of Ishvara, less of I. Meaning more of Ishvara's agenda, less of personal agenda. This happens when I become free from the need for personal agenda, slowly and slowly. Vividishanti, that is how Vividisha, the desire for knowledge, arises. Then karma has done its job. So how long should one perform karma? Meaning, how long should one perform karma instead of yoga until Vividisha, or the desire for knowledge, arises? Then one is ready to give up karma. Not to become a useless person. Yes, now he can become a beggar. Tametam atmanam viditva putreshanayascha lokaishanayascha, putreshanayascha vitteshanayascha lokaishanayascha vitta. All the eshanas slowly and slowly go away. Putreshana, vitteshana, lokaishana. Slowly and slowly you become free from the eshanas or cravings. Then you are living more and more in the present, by the way. This living in the present becomes this process. Brahmana, then bhikshacharyam charanti, they become beggars. In the olden days, the Vedic times, the only way that you could pursue the knowledge was becoming a beggar. A glorified beggar. A sannyasi was called bhikshu. Bhikshu means a beggar. Except that there was sanction for begging. Otherwise, no sanction for begging in the Vedic culture. But this person had a sanction that you can go and beg. And people will respect him also. When a person like that goes and stands in front of a home or household, and says, Bhavati Bhikshan Dehi, oh, mother, please give me bhiksha, she feels very happy that somebody has come at my door. So society will respect these people also. It's possible that you may not get any bhiksha also, that also, but not that you keep on running from one house to the other until you get what you want. Or you go to specific places because he knows that this is what I'll get from here. See, some families have this custom that on some Monday they make this, and on Tuesday they cook this, and Wednesday they cook this, and this dal on that day, and that. So then people know, and then so on Friday you go here, and Saturday you go there, and Thursday you go there. Svadvannam nusuyachidam, Shankaracharya says that do not ask for delicious food. Vidivasat prapena, here of course we have all delicious food every day, but Vidivasat prapena santoshyata. Whatever you get vidivasat by your prarabdha. Santoshyata, be content with what you get. Vidhi means also Ishvara's grace, whatever you get. That means he is free from all the, all the labor and the activities required for cooking and buying and shopping and cleaning and stuff like that. In turn, he has to be satisfied with what he gets. So why is all this allowed? So that this person gets the leisure now to pursue what he needs to pursue. So there was a sanction of sannyasa for giving this person the leisure. He was relieved from all the duties now. That sannyasa means renunciation of duties. And that has to be formally done. You cannot just drop out, but you have to go through a ceremony and say that, okay, now I'm giving up all my duties. Swamiji, I'm ready to do it today. Give me all duties. But giving up duties also accompanied by giving up rights, by the way. I have no rights now. So I have no claim from my family. I have given up my duties, no claim also. This shows the freedom of mind, by the way. It's one thing that we put rules and regulations, but the thing is, it shows the freedom of mind, that you progressively discover freedom from yourself, freedom from this kind of needs, from expectations, from demands. Less expectations you have, less possibility of disappointments. More expectations we have, more possibility of hurt and disappointments. Because what makes us unhappy is nothing but unfulfilled expectations, basically. When rajas is predominant, lots of expectations are there, lots of demands are there, and then lots of disappointments are also there. Lots of conflicts also are there, hurt and guilt are also there. It's all in rajas. But by this, a deliberate process of this transformation. Now his mind has become free from those demands and needs and expectations. Then only you can live a certain way of life. It's not that you live that way of life and then give up expectation. It doesn't happen. Brahmana vividishanti. Yajnena, dhanena, tapasa. Whatever duties are supposed to perform are performed for creating the desire for knowledge. Tad vijnanartham sagurumeva vigacche. So then comes the further stage. As far as the living in the present is concerned, ultimately culminates into pursuit of knowledge and gaining the knowledge and abiding in the knowledge. So we described yesterday, who is the person who is living in the present? Lord Krishna calls him Sthita Prajna, or different names he gives. In the 14th chapter of Gita, he calls him the Gunatitaha, one who has transcended the gunas. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. So from Tamas to Rajas to Sattva and then to self which is devoid of gunas. Lord Krishna describes a person like that. Samadukha sukha swastha, samaloshta ashvakanchana, tulya priya priyo dhira, tulya nindatma samstudhi, manapamanayo tulya, tulyo mitrari pakshayo. Manam, apmanam, stuti, ninda, mitra, Shatru, all pairs of opposites we encounter constantly, and usually we react to all of them either with harsha and shoka. That's with the rajasic mind. A mind in rajas will react. If we find something which is, which is helpful, favorable, desirable, then he reacts with elation. Find something undesirable, then he reacts again with sadness, depression. Harsha and Shoka. So mind with Rajas is generally pushed from one end to the Harsha and Shoka. Poor thing cannot enjoy any tranquility or peace of mind. So this process of living a life wherein these harsha, shoka, raga, dveshas are not, I do not submit to them. And I submit to my duty, my values, my spirit of self-offering. That is how one becomes now a person who is fit for or ready for the next stage of life, which is called the Vividisha Sannyasa. In a way, most of people who are sitting here have that sannyasa spirit. Although, as I said yesterday, in those days the only way the knowledge could be pursued is by becoming a sannyasi, because one had to go to the teacher. The teaching was not available where we were, so we had to go where it was available, and therefore it required a formal departure from the home. And that means that I have to give up all my connections and duties, towards my home or family, and then I give also my rights and demands from the family. So there was a formalized process of what they call sannyasa, called Vividisha sannyasa. Sannyasa taken for the sake of Vividisha, for the sake of pursuing knowledge. Now that formality need not happen, because the situations have changed fortunately, and therefore now the teaching is coming to us. I hear from everybody, Swamiji, we spent X number of hours, and now on the YouTube everything is available. Which may be good, bad or whatever, but everything is available. So, it's going to be available. If we exercise again our viveka, then we choose, what to expose ourselves to and what not to, but now it's all available. Meaning that the teachers come to our home. So, Swami, you came to our home the other day, so this was a few years ago when from here there was a transmission over, I was in India, and then we recorded some classes and then transmitted here, and then they transmitted. We were so happy, you came to our home. Now, of course, so this is a change that has happened, which has released us from the need of a formal divorce, from our situation. At the same time, however, we hope that The sannyasa should happen in our mind. If sannyasa does not happen in the way of life, which was required earlier, at least in the mind slowly that spirit of sannyasa should arise. Our kind of interest should change. Our demands should change. Our requirements should change. They will happen as the mind changes. So we should look for that kind of transformation in ourselves. For our own happiness anyway. More sattvic the mind becomes, happier we are. This is the process of making ourselves happy. There is no other way of making ourselves happy. Because happiness is a state of mind and sattvic state of mind. So we should be slowly looking for this changes taking place in our own mind. Not formally becoming renunciates by lifestyle, but as far as the spirit is concerned, we should discover freedom progressively from our needs and expectations and demands and discover more and more self, discover contentment. Not force contentment of ourselves, but discover. What our Swami used to call emotional maturity. A less and less demanding person, a less and less needy person, more and more self-content person, enjoying more and more leisure in the mind. So the mind is available to do what you want to do. Which I discover when I talk to people, now people spend a lot of time of their day in listening to the classes and things, and which is very good. So that is a process that ultimately leads to knowledge and abidance in the knowledge. So if you understand the whole process of how we have to transform our mind progressively, then the whole scheme becomes very clear. And nothing is forced on ourselves, but we have a value. That ultimately value is for living in the present, abiding in the self, knowing the self, gaining the knowledge, desiring the knowledge, which calls for a certain maturity of mind, which calls for a certain process of life. The whole scheme becomes clear, then we can slowly pursue that. And that's how the living in the present becomes a practical, progressively becomes a practical reality for us. Okay, we'll take a break here. Our Shuddhatmaji also has come, he'll speak to you for a few minutes. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakutau Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.